Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is Andy255, Module 7, and this is part 2 of our milk liquid simulation. So all I did was, since the last video, was select this and add a Maya blend shader to this material to it, and just turned it brown so we could see it a little bit better. And as you can see, that does help. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a cylinder. That's going to be our container. Okay, usually liquid containers have their own containers, but with end particles we don't. So we've got to create an object that will be the container for the end particles, because we want to fill this up with end particles like liquid, and we don't want to go in here and create an emitter and create those particles. So this is going to be something a little different than what you learned in introduction to end particles. So what we're going to do is just create a cylinder. So go to create cylinder, and from the top view I'm just going to move that over, hit the W key, there you go. And I'm going to go ahead and scale that up. Now you see like these little yellow things in here. Don't worry about those. I'm just going to take those out so you can't really see those. I'm going to move that. I don't want that to distract you. Okay, you can see the bottom of my picture, so I'm going to make that a little bit larger, but we're not going to touch that because we don't want the particles to come out of the picture. That's really important. Alright, so I'm going to move that up to the bottom of the picture. That's what where the picture looks like, right there. So that's the bottom, so I don't want to go any farther down than that. We have to be very, very careful not to touch that. And then I'm going to right click over it, excuse me, right click over the vertex, there we go, and move those up. There we go. Now we're not sure how many particles, because it compacts when they come down, so I've got to be really careful not to go too much or too less. I just don't know what we're going to need for this, because like you, it's the first time doing a simulation with this, because every module that we have I had to totally redo for online. So a lot of the stuff you're seeing me work on firsthand. Okay, so let's go ahead and do face. Click on the face, and let's go ahead and delete that. I've worked with end particles, but I haven't done a simulation like this. I wanted to do something fun, so we're going to do this. And I'm going to go in here. Make sure we delete. Whenever we do particles, we always want to go ahead and delete by type history. Freeze transformations on that. Just kind of clean it up. And I think let's give it a try. Just double checking on that wireframe there. Okay, that looks good. Right. Okay, so make sure you're in. I did it about double the size of it. Hopefully that'll be enough, and we can always redo it. Alright, so with that done, make sure you're in particles. Make sure the object's selected. You've deleted the history and froze transformation. Go to end particles, and then go to fill object. And we need to go into the option box. Create new solver. Resolution starts at I think 10, but we're going to do. I did 100 and that was too much, so we're going to try 50. I've done 30. That wasn't so great. So now I'm kind of just guesstimating that 50 will be good enough. Let's go ahead and particle fill. And that's good. So that's done. And then with the particle selected, go ahead and go into the outliner. With particle selected, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and let's go Control A, so you can see the particle shape. The radius is at 0.174. Okay, that's with them packed like that, and I guess we're kind of stuck with that. I don't really like those particles so large. If I change them now, it might change the simulation, but let's see what we get. Let's go ahead and change it to select the whole thing and just do 0.1 and hit enter. Okay. Okay, and then what I want to do is click on the cylinder and put it in a layer. So Control A, and we're going to add a layer. I'm going to turn that off. And you can see that they're spaced apart now, right? But that's okay. And what you're going to do now is you're going to select your picture, okay, and you're going to go to End Cloth and go to Create Passive Collider. I've already done it, okay. And then you're going to click on your glass, go to End Cloth, Create Passive Collider, and then you're going to click on your table, go to End Cloth, Passive Collider. I've already done this, okay. All right, and then when you do that, then you should see. I'm going to go ahead and show, and you'll see that little. When you select on an object, you'll see that it has that little object, that little rigid body on there. Okay. All right, so the table has it inside, the glass has it inside, and the picture has it inside. Alright, so now we're ready to do our simulation with our small particle size. Now, I wrote down the particle size to be 0.174. So if this messes up, I can scale that back up again. What I mean is that I'm going to go back in here, and you can see that I changed that from 0.174 or whatever it was. And you can see how many particles we have, 4,774. I tried it with 1,000 something, but it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. It didn't look right. So I changed the radius down to 0.1. Let's see how it looks. So there's no animation on the objects yet for pouring, so let's go ahead and simulate. Oh, it didn't see that particle rigid body, so I'm going to have to take that off. I'm going to have to take that rigid body off because it didn't see it for some reason. So I'm going to go in here to Edit, Delete All by Type in Rigids. Okay. So that took everything off. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Add that to it real quick. And there we go. So there's one. It doesn't take too long. And then I just want to make sure everything's done right. There we go. All right. So that happens if you find that happens to you. Let's go ahead and go back again. And there we go. Now it's going to fill that up a little bit with milk. All right. We got some particles that went through, and that happens. I'm not too worried about it. Okay. I'm going to go back again. Now if we turn that back up again, radius back to 1 point, we really probably shouldn't mess with that, to be honest. 1.74. That's what it was, tightly packed. Let's go ahead and do that simulation, and that'll give us a little bit more. Okay, there we go. Let's let it settle. Go ahead, and it's moving faster. The smaller the particles, the higher the resolution, then the more problems you're going to have, meaning the speed. So I went from 30 to 50, so hopefully our resolution is a little higher. That'll help with the simulation. And about 200, it should have just relaxed. You know, meaning that we don't want it to keep simulating down. So what I'm going to do now is stop the simulation, select the particle, make sure it's actually selected, okay? And then we're going to go to Fields and Solvers and go to Initial State Set for Selected. So whatever state it's in, okay, we're going to set that up. Right, so now we can go back to frame 1 and notice that it is going to stay there, which is kind of nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and let that settle. And there's some things we want to do with the particles still. As far as, let's see, dynamic properties. And then we're going to do liquid simulation. Viscosity we want to be 0.15. Enter. And then we want the surface tension to be 1. There we go. So those are the two things we're going to change right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and play that simulation again. It might change the way they settle. So let's let that settle again. It's okay, you can do this multiple times. So I'm going to let that settle. That'll be a little bit different than what it was. Okay. Let that run a little bit. We'll let it stop. I think it's settled down now, so I'm going to stop it. I'm going to click on the particle. I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to go back to Fields and Solvers, and go down to Initial State, Set for Selected. There we go. So now when I go back to frame 1, now it's all settled. So we're good. So now we're good to go. I want you to save your scene. So go ahead and save your scene. Save scene as. And I'm going to save this out to something like new simulation, because I've done this a couple times. And save that out. Okay, so that's done. We've got a collision on the glass and collision on the table, and so now all we have to do is then animate the glass, the picture going up. Now your scale is going to be a little bit different, but I wanted you to try to model everything pretty close to the scale that I have. But when I did the animation, I had to do it a couple times to try it to make sure it works. So you'll have to do the same thing. So if you you don't want to tip it too fast, you don't want to move the animation too fast. So I ended up doing a picture animation, and I'll take you through what I did. And of course yours is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go to the side view. And with the picture animation, what I did was I set a keyframe for frame 1. So just set a keyframe, hit the S key. And then I went to frame 30. Okay. I set a key, the same thing. I don't want anything to change here. I'm going to hit the W key. And on frame 60, I went ahead and moved this up. And don't worry about the particles. They don't know what to do because we're keyframing. So if they explode and go wild, don't worry. So I'm going to bring that up to something like 5. For me, I did 5.172. Now this won't work for you probably, but at least you'll get an idea. So I'm going to hit the S key. So 30 frames to move it up. And then we're going to do 90, frame 90. And frame 90, we're just going to let it hold there for a while. So I'm going to hit another, hit the S key for another keyframe. And at frame 220 is when we actually pour it out. So it's at the same height still, but on frame Z, okay, we're going to rotate it. We're going to rotate it like this. And notice that when I rotate, I'm away from the glass. Because otherwise, if you rotate it too fast, it'll overshoot. So I'll leave a lot of keyframes for it to go slowly rotating. And if you rotate too fast, it'll be kind of a weird looking simulation. So I did 90.719. So I'm going to type that in, 90.719. And then hit enter. And that's where it's going to be pouring out. And I'm going to hit the S key. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to click off so we can see the pour simulation. And I'm going to go ahead and do the simulation. Now, if it's acting weird through, like halfway through, even if you hit the stop button here, it may not stop simulation. So I would hit the escape key a couple times, and then it should stop, and you can rewind it and then animate it again. Animate your glass, your picture a little bit different. You'll have to do that off and on. This is the long process of getting the simulation to look right. Okay, you'll probably have to animate it several different ways. Change the keyframes. Might have to move the picture back a little bit so they don't spill all over the place. I mean, you just have to kind of, your scene's going to be different, your picture's going to be different. So you can't plug in the same exact keyframes. I do want you, or the exact same numbers, but the keyframes I want you to keep at 1, 30, 60, 90, and 220, and write those down, and then you can keyframe. So that's what I did, and so now you have to simulate it, and it's going to take a while. Okay, I'm not going to simulate all 500. I'm going to simulate maybe up to 300, and it's almost better if you just go ahead and right-click over it and do a play blast. Okay, that's up to you what you want to do. Okay, some people like to do the play blast because it takes just as long. That way they have a movie file of it. It's whatever you want to do, but I'm just going to go ahead and simulate it by just playing on the simulation button. Okay, and look at it myself and see if I like it. But for this the recording, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like by play blasting it. Okay. Hello, I'm back, and I've got ahead. I got everything working on the play blast, so for some reason it was just showing the DLLs, and I got it all fixed up. But this is my simulation, just kind of sharing it with you, that it's bouncing all over the place, and I am spilling quite a bit out, which I'm okay with. Don't spill the milk was just to be funny. The fact is we will spill milk, so that's what we see here. So I'll play it again. It's bouncing all over the place, so I need to fix that. And everything looks good. I like how it's pouring in. Just ignore the spilling. But yeah, pretty good. Not too bad. I could slow the pouring, but that's a pretty good. I think that's pretty good. I think it's slow enough. I might be going up too fast. Might change that. The pouring, I think, is slow enough. If you were to pour it faster, it'd fling it all over the place. So we got to be careful. I think that's okay. But I think going up is too fast. Just maybe slow it down a little bit. So that's what I'll do. I'll make those changes. And everything else, let's go ahead and look at what we have. So go back to the beginning. Simulation does take a long time, and the more particles you have, and if you're on a laptop, man, you're just going to have to bite your tongue on this because it's going to be slow, just how it is. So I'm going to take these keyframes here. I'm going to go at frame 58. I'm going to hold down the shift key and hold my left mouse button down and drag it across. Of course, it's going to make my particles go crazy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move those keyframes 220. Okay, what you see here. I think my pouring, where's my pouring at? Between here. Okay, my pouring is right here, so it's my moving up is this. So I got to start on frame 58 and hold down the shift key and pull that across like I did. I was just second guessing myself again. 220, let's go to 260. So we want to move that to 260. That point. There we go. There we go. And click off. Because that should be 100, right? Let's see if I got that right. 100, yeah, 130, and then 260. There, that'll work. So that I wanted to fix, so I fixed that so it's not moving up as fast. Okay, when you scrub, your particles are going to explode. So I'm going to click on my particles and find out what the heck's going on with these as far as let's see here. Let's pull all these up. It just gets in the way. Alright, so liquid simulation, dynamic properties. Okay, so we've got conserve, drag, mass, and all that other stuff in here, which we know. Let's see, liquid simulation, viscosity, we got all that set up right. Surface tension, yeah, just like I told you to do. But I don't see any like bounciness or anything like that. So that comes with, not with each other. So let's go to dynamic properties. And I just don't see anything in here that can keep them from. Particle size. Okay. Lifespan's got nothing to do with anything as far as, deleting, and we don't want them we want them to live forever in this simulation. But I think it's just on the object itself. So bounds is set at 0. Friction, I think it's just the objects they just bounce around, I guess. So we can't really stop that, but on the table I do want to turn the friction up to something like 0.5 so they're not sliding off the table. Okay, so we want that to be at least 0.5. So I'm going to change that. Alright, so I think I like everything. If I wanted to keep those particles in the glass, what I could do is I could take a blocking object to block those particles, and that probably won't work very well. Let's do a cylinder. Let me show you what I could do if I don't want to spill the milk at all. I would make it about the size of the glass, like that. Okay. And then basically take all the faces off this part and all the faces on something like about round. Well, that would probably work. So take the top off, go back, and let's take the top and bottom off. I missed a couple pieces here, like that, and the top and bottom needs to come off. So I could go in here and do this dealy bobby thing using my paintbrush and delete that. I could take this and move this probably out of the way. So hit the Q key and just go into object mode to move it out of the way. There we go, so I can see what I'm doing. Alright, so now I can paint those faces down on the bottom. Make sure I don't select anything else accidentally and delete. And that can be a surface that will hold all the liquid particles in, right? So I could have it basically hold those particles in. This would be my barrier, my invisible barrier. And the only thing I'd have to do now, particles may not see that because the normals are on this side. So I could just flip the normals and go reverse normals like that. And now they would catch those particles. Now, problem with this is that it's kind of be within that glass a little bit. It's kind of hard to see. And it looks like it's formed in there pretty good. I can scale that just a little bit to make sure. Okay. Alright, so, and then I could do the simulation, and I would just take that and go to end cloth, passive, and then I could take this guy right here, put it in we don't want to see it, so Control A. You can't really put it in a layer and turn it off because the simulation won't see it. So you just have to turn the visibility off. Okay. And I can rename that to be something like barrier if I don't want any milk to spill out. So now I could play the simulation and it will keep all those particles in. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause this real quick and come back. Okay, I'm back again and we'll play the animation. And it didn't quite keep all the particles in. It did a pretty good job in the middle, but I think the width of this area here just hits the rim, and I'm going to have some spilling. So I just gotta be okay with that, and I am. So I'm gonna get rid of the barrier. I could fiddle with this and create a funnel that will be as wide as this part right here, and I could do that. But you know, it's fun to see it spill a little bit too. So I think the spilling, if we look at the spilling, that it looks pretty good. That it doesn't roll off the table. So when it hits the rim, they move a little bit, but they kind of make a a pool, which is this is what you would see in real life anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and close that and just get rid of that. The barrier I'm going to turn back on again so I can see it. Just turn it on and just delete it. Don't need that. Okay, so I think that looks good. I think I like I'll do one more simulation. We'll pause the video and then we'll come back and see that, and you'll see what the finished image or the finished play blast looks like, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're back, and here's my final simulation. And I think I want to cache this one, save the scene, cache it, and then we'll go to the next video. But I think I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Okay, great. So save all your play blasts and save your scene. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save this scene. So go ahead and save your scene as, and then in the next video I'll show you how to cache your particles. Basically, you won't have to keep simulating. You can cache your particles, and then we'll work from there. And then we're gonna mesh up, and that'll be that. And I'll see you in the next video.